Hello?
The higher this is, we did some testing. Also got one.
Oh, right. This is
Hello, can you hear me in the back? I think it's good. Yeah, it's good. Testing, testing. It's okay. Thank you, Alexander.
I'm going to have to spend some time with this over the summer and see if I can improve our process.
Say something. Hi everyone, today I'm presenting Railroad Hazmat Material Transportation Risk Management Framework. Okay.
Actually, let's stop it in the morning. Okay. You actually get started.
So I should stand here, right?
You can stand where. Oh, actually.
Because this video is here, right?
Yeah.
No, he was standing around his computer. This is where.
Yeah, I will stand here and not move at all.
Well, you can move about where Alexander is, but just if you go
I know,
much
I
further,
understand.
I'll be like.
But I will look at the screen anyway. So.
Okay.
Yeah, over the summer,
Hello?
I like to play around with this and see if I can somehow get the and there was a computer so good they turn off your screen computer.
Hello, testing, testing. Hello, testing. Testing, testing.
Did you show him the pointer?
Okay, so you don't want to use that.
Okay, I'm not using
because
it.
if you point with this, then the people on the computer can't see what you're doing.
Okay.
So there's. So where's that pointer?
I don't use a laser. Maybe I can use this button. It's okay.
The what button?
This one.
Is that?
You can use the cursor.
You can use the cursor.
Okay. If I use this button, I cannot transition from one slide.
No, you can transition. That's fine. It's just when you're pointing at stuff, don't use the laser. Yeah. So you can still use that to advance, but you're gonna be standing here anyway.
Sure. Okay. So the clicker does not work, right? I use.
No, the clicker should be fine. Yeah. It's just the laser.
Yeah.
So Vicky, do you want me to be in another room at a computer so I can monitor audio and stuff?
I think Kit is monitoring the audio.
Okay.
Abby, she said she wouldn't do it back to me.
Okay.
So I'll get a message. But if you stay in peace because the troubleshooting will come up, and then at that point where he needs to switch the screen, because I want him to be able to read the question.
Okay. So that someone doesn't have to read on.
Yeah, he's not having to look on the screen.
And then something we can do is when he is doing the questions, we could actually turn the webcam on so that they can see him answering their questions. I don't know if that would be good, but
no, I think that'd be great. Yeah.
Can you increase the volume? Can you make it like one louder, or can we adjust the volume? Is there any?
I don't know of any.
Okay. Speak as loud as I can. Right.
I think we just speak normal. Like most guys' voice are kind of deep, so it works.
Okay.
Another thing is that
it is recording.
And the audio's on it.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Should it be on?
Server and FaceTime now.
That's right.
You get one?
Can you say testing the audio?
Okay. Testing. Testing. Hello? Okay. Can you hear me in the back? Yes. Clearly. Okay. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're going to get started. Hello, my name is Xiang, and I want to welcome all of you to the William W. Hay Railroad Engineering Seminar here at the University of Illinois. Before I introduce our speaker, I would like to address a few housekeeping items. First one, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or to vibrate. If you have a fire alarm, exit from these doors and take the nearest safe stairs down to the first floor and exit the building. Carefully cross the main street and assemble next to the hydro system lab. Please use the buddy system and look for the person next to you when we reassemble. In the event of severe weather, we should go to the basement. In that case, the best way to get there is to use the exit and proceed down the hallway towards Newmark Lab and then take the stairs all the way down to the basement. Please be sure to sign the attendance sheets. If you want to pass it around, including your name and affiliation. If you did not receive a direct email announcement of this seminar, I would like to in the future, please include your email address. I would like to welcome those of you who are joining us by telephone, which today includes CH2M Hill, Michigan Tech, Railstar Engineering, Trains Magazine, Transport Environmental Systems, STV, BNSF, Engineering System Corporation, ESI, URS Corporation, Tom Cornely, Metra, Trinity, Metra, and Patrick Engineering. Those of you dialing in who wish to receive CEUs for your participation, please send Vicky an email with your information as described in the email announcements for this seminar. I would ask that speaker, please try and state the title of the slide or the slide number to help people on the telephone to follow along. If there are questions, it would be helpful if you can restate them for the benefit of the telephone audience. Now I would like to introduce RMA Student Chapter President, Brendan Corrin, for an announcement.
Hi, my name is Brendan Corrin. In honor of our speaker today, the Urbana Student Chapter is going to be holding a happy hour at Legends on Green Street. That's going to start at 5 o'clock this evening, and we'll have free appetizers, so we hope to see you there.
Thank you, Brendan. The William W. Hay Railroad Seminar Series is sponsored by Norfolk Southern Corporation here at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. On behalf of all of us here at the university, we thank NS for their ongoing support. It is greatly appreciated by those of us on campus as well as all who are participating via the internet. Approximately 1.7 million carloads of hazardous materials were transported in the US in 2010, and more than 99.99% reached their destination without release due to an accident. However, due to security concerns and several fatal accidents, interest in all possible means of reducing hazardous materials transportation risk has intensified in recent years. The risk of transporting hazardous materials is affected by a variety of infrastructure-related, rolling stock-related, operational and environmental factors. Changes to each of these can have direct effect on the risk, and they also have interactive effects. This study aims to develop a risk management framework that will provide quantitative analytical methods to assess the relative effectiveness of various strategies to reduce hazardous materials transportation risk and identify the optimal set of risk reduction strategies. This presentation summarizes some of the research results regarding the analysis of freight train derailment, frequency and severity by major accident causes, modeling of hazardous materials release risk, and evaluation of risk reduction strategies. Xiang is a PhD student here in the Rail Transportation and Engineering Center in the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Over the past 4 years, he has been working on train accident analysis, risk modeling of hazardous materials transportation, and evaluation of risk reduction strategies. Some of his research results have been used by railroads in their risk management decisions and by the Association of American Railroads in developing and evaluating safety and risk policy. In the summer of 2010, he interned at the Transportation and Technology Center, TTCI, where he was involved in wheel-rail interface analysis and train safety research. He is a recipient of awards from ARIMA, American Association of Railroad Superintendents, ASME, and Society of Risk Analysis. Prior to attending the University of Illinois, he completed his bachelor's degree in marine transportation from Shanghai Jiaotong University, China in 2008. Please join me in welcoming our speaker today, Mr. Xiang, who will present the William W. Hay Railroad Engineering Seminar entitled Railroad Hazardous Materials Transportation Risk Management Framework.
Okay, hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Saad, for the very nice introduction. First, I want to say, as a student who is considering railway engineering as a future career, today for me is a great honor and pleasure to stand here and present some of the rail safety research I'm going to do in my dissertation. Thank you, Professor Barton, for providing me this opportunity. As the title of this presentation suggested, the overarching goal of my PhD research is to develop a framework to manage the risk of hazardous materials transportation by railroad. In my talk today, I will first present an overview of hazardous materials transportation by rail in the United States. The focus is to introduce the analytical framework we are developing for risk management. Specifically, this framework includes train accident analysis, risk analysis, and decision analysis. Throughout my presentation, I will present several proposed research topics I'm going to pursue in my dissertation. So we are on slide number 3. This slide presents an overview of railroad hazardous materials transportation in the United States. Hazardous materials are an important component for North American economic development, and is also an important revenue source to the railroads. In 2010, there were almost 1.7 million rail carloads of hazardous materials transported in the United States. Although hazmat traffic is only a small proportion of total rail carloads, but is responsible for a major share of rail insurance and liability risk. So its safety has been placed a high priority in both the railroad and the industry and the government. Fortunately, railroads have a pretty good safety record. For instance, in 2008, nearly all rail hazmat shipments reached their destinations without a release due to train accidents, and the train accident-caused hazmat release rate have declined dramatically over the past decade. However, due to safety security concerns and several recent severe hazmat release incident, further improvement in the transportation safety remains a high priority in the industry and government. In the larger context of railroad hazmat transportation, hazmat release risk is affected by a variety of interconnected factors. Different risk reduction strategies, either individually or in combination, can have a direct effect on some of these risk factors, and different risk reduction strategies can have their safety benefit as well as implementation cost. So in this research, based on identifying and quantifying the relationship between these factors with the hazmat release risk, using infrastructure data, accident data, traffic data, cost data, and other data, we are developing a framework to optimize strategies to improve hazmat transportation safety in the most cost-efficient manner. We are on slide number 7. Specifically, this analytical framework consists of 3 types of analysis. The first type of analysis of train accident analysis. The task here is to understand the factors affecting train accident frequency, severity, and the primary accident causes. Based on the accident analysis, the next stage of this work is to develop models to quantify hazmat release risk given specified rolling stock, track, and operational information. And the follow-up question is how to evaluate the cost efficiency of different risk reduction strategies. Ultimately, the goal is to develop an optimization model to determine the best combination of risk reduction strategies and their various constraints and uncertainty. Let's start talk about train accident analysis. The majority of hazmat release incidents are due to train accident. And the train accident can occur due to a variety of accident causes. So in the next 3 slides, I will show train derailment frequency and severity by major derailment causes. The data source I used in this research comes from U.S. Federal Railroad Administration Rail Equipment Accident Database. This database records all accidents that exceeded a specified monetary threshold of damages. This database records detailed accident information such as railroad, accident type, location, causes, severity, and other information. All this information is important for the accident analysis and prevention. In this study, we focus on Class 1 freight railroads, which account for the majority of railway infrastructure, traffic, and revenues in the United States. In this FRA-RE database, FRA classified all accident causes. On the higher level, FRA classified all these accident causes into 5 big categories, which are track defects, equipment failures, human errors, signal failures, and misdemeanors. As shown from this pie chart, we say the majority of freight train derailments on Class 1 main lines were caused by either track failures or mechanical failures. So in order to provide a higher resolution accident analysis, in the next slide, each of these 5 categories will be classified into several subgroups of accident causes. In this chart, the x-axis represents specific accident causes, and the y-axis on the left represents Class 1 mainline freight train derailment frequency, and the y-axis on the right represents the cumulative percentage for the derailment frequency distribution. As we see from this chart, derailment frequency are not evenly distributed among all accident causes. Certain causes account for more derailment than the others. For instance, broken rails or wells are the leading derailment causes on Class 1 main lines. For every 5 or 6 train derailment, 1 is due to broken rails or wells. The other common accident causes include track geometry defects, bearing failures, broken wheels, and other causes. As we see here, the top 10 accident causes account for approximately 56% of all train derailments. So this suggests that if the prevention of these common accident causes are cost effective, this is a starting point to identify and develop promising risk reduction strategies. We are on slide 12. In addition to derailment frequency, different accident causes may also have different derailment severity. In this study, we define derailment severity as the average number of cars derailed per derailment. It is related to the kinetic energy accumulated in the train derailments. The more cars derailed, generally the more severe a derailment is. The x-axis in this chart is the number of derailments for a specific accident cause. The y-axis is the average number of cars derailed per derailment. There are two dashed lines in this graph. The horizontal dashed line represents the average derailment severity for all accident causes, and the vertical dashed line represents the average derailment frequency for all causes. These two dashed lines divide this chart into 4 areas. The causes in different areas are of different interest. For instance, the causes in the upper right of this chart represent the accident causes which are not only more common but also more severe than the average. Those causes include broken rails or wells, buckled track, obstruction, wet gate, and so on. Remember in my previous slide I showed that broken rails or wells and bearing failures are the leading track-related and equipment-related accident causes. As we see, both causes are more common than the average, but their severity is different. On average, broken rails or wells can cause more cars derailed compared to bearing failures. So in order to understand this better, in the next slide, I will show derailment severity distribution due to these two causes. Let us first look at the number of cars derailed due to broken rails or wells. In this chart, the x-axis is the number of cars derailed. The y-axis represents the frequency of derailment, which had the same severity, and the cumulative distribution of derailment severity. As we see, on average, broken rails or wells can cause 14.2 cars derailed. It's the mean value. The median value is 12. Then let's compare this with the derailment severity distribution due to bearing failures. As we see here, these two distributions are very different. On average, the derailment severity due to broken rails or wells are almost double of that due to bearing failures. And for bearing failures, more than 50% of the bearing failures caused train derailments involved a single car derailment. So all this analysis convey the same message that different accident causes can result in different derailment frequency and severity. So, in my dissertation research, I'm modeling this accident cause-specific accident rate and severity. For instance, we are developing a logistic regression model to estimate the probability that a train accident is caused by a specific accident cause. And in terms of modeling train derailment severity, we are developing negative binomial regression model to estimate the mean value of number of cars derailed, and the quantile regression to estimate the quantile distribution such as median value of number of cars derailed. The application of the results in the accident analysis is to evaluate the effectiveness of specific accident prevention strategies. We're on slide 15. Based on the train accident analysis, the next stage of this work is to develop models to quantify the hazmat release risk. Hazmat release incident is a result of a chain of events. Due to certain accident causes, a train may be involved in a derailment, and the train derailment probability is affected by a number of factors, such as track condition, method of operation, track type, human factors, equipment design, and other factors. Given a train is derailed, the number of cars derailed from this train is dependent on train speed, causes of accident, train length, and other factors. The probability that the derailed cars contain hazardous materials is dependent on how many hazmat cars in the train, how many non-hazmat cars in the train, and the placement of hazmat cars in the train. The conditional probability of a release for a derailed hazmat car is dependent on hazmat car safety design and derailment speed. The consequences of a hazmat release incident is also variable, dependent on chemical property, population density, spill size, and environmental conditions. In this study, we focus on modeling hazmat release rate, which represents the likelihood of a hazmat release incident. So how to model this? We use this formula to estimate hazmat car release rate, given specific rolling stock, track, and tanker design information. Hazmat release rate is defined as number of hazmat cars released per traffic exposure. The estimation of hazmat car release is based on the estimation of several probability terms here. So in the next few slides, I will introduce how we quantify each of these terms in sequence. We're on slide 18. I will start talking about mainline train derailment rate. Train derailment rate is defined as number of train derailments normalized by certain traffic exposure, such as train miles, car miles, or gross ton miles. Train derailment rate represents the likelihood of a train derailment and is an important factor in rail safety and risk analysis. Based upon the latest accident and traffic data, we found out train derailment rate varies by 3 factors significantly. The first factor is IFRA track class. IFRA track class is the federal classification of the track quality. The higher the track class, the higher the maximum allowable speed, and the more stringent safety standard may apply. In addition to IFRA track class, another factor affecting derailment rate is method of operation, classified into non-signal territory versus signal territory. The third factor is annual traffic density level. The 2 charts here shows the estimated Class 1 mainline freight train derailment rate per billion gross ton miles by the 3 risk factors. As we see here, when the other 2 factors are the same, the higher the track class, the lower the derailment rate. Signal territory is associated with a lower derailment rate compared to non-signal territory. And a track with a higher traffic density level is associated with a lower train derailment rate. These results can in part be explained by different train operations and engineering and maintenance practices for different track characteristics. Next, given a train is derailed, each car in this train has a probability for derailment. And this relationship of car derailment by position in train is affected by train length and the train speed. As we see here, because different positions in the train have different car derailment probability, this suggests that if the hazmat cars are placed in different positions in the train, this may result in different risk estimate, which I'm talking about in the next slide. The probability that a derailed rail car contains hazardous materials depends on the total length of train, number of hazmat in the train, and how these hazmat cars are placed in the train. Given train length and the number of hazmat cars in the train, the worst case scenario is that all these hazmat cars are placed in the train positions that are most prone to derailment. I want to emphasize that not all the derailed hazmat car will necessarily release. In this research, because the majority of hazardous materials movements occur in tank cars, so we use tank cars as an example to assess hazmat release rate. In this analysis, we use Copperserd and Barkan's model to estimate the conditional probability release of a derailed tank car given 2 factors. One is the tank car safety design, the other one is train derailment speed. On the application level, this model can be used to evaluate segment-specific hazmat release rate and aid to develop and prioritize risk reduction strategies. For the purpose of illustration, in the next 3 slides, we perform sensitivity analysis to analyze the relationship between tank car release rate and several train-related factors, including train length, number of tank cars in the train, as well as train derailment speed. This chart shows, given track conditions, what is the estimated tank car release rate by train length and number of tank cars. The x-axis represents the number of tank cars in the train, and the y-axis is the tank car release rate per remaining train miles, when the derailment speed is a constant as 40 miles per hour. Different train lengths are represented in different colors. As we see here, given the same amount of tank cars in the train, the longer the train, the higher the risk level. Given train length, the more tank cars in the train, the higher the risk. Next, we look at when the train length is a constant, assuming there are 100 cars in the train, and we change the number of tank cars in the train and change the derailment speed, what is the estimated tank car release rate? Again, this shows that the more tank cars in the train, the greater the derailment speed, the higher the tank car release rate is expected. Finally, we look at when there are a constant number of tank cars in the train, the relationship between estimated tank car release rate by train length and derailment speed. It shows that given the same derailment speed, the longer the train, the higher the release rate. And given the same train length, the greater the derailment speed, the higher the tank car release rate. So as a summary, given track conditions, train length, derailment speed, and number of tank cars can affect estimated hazmat release rate per train mile. When all else is equal, a longer train results in a higher release rate, a greater derailment speed results in a higher release rate, and a larger number of tank cars also result in a higher release rate. This model can also be used to assess tank car release rate for a variety of track and rolling stock characteristics. So the next task is to evaluate specific risk reduction strategies. We're on slide 28. There are some basic strategies for reducing the probability of hazmat release incident. The first strategy is to reduce tank car derailment rate by preventing various accident causes. The second strategy is to reduce the release probability of a derailed tank car by enhancing tank car safety design and or reducing train speed. For different risk reduction strategies, they could have different safety benefit in terms of risk reduction, and they may also have different implementation cost. The evaluation of risk reduction strategies by considering the risk and cost can be performed in a multi-attribute framework using Pareto-optimality. In this chart, the x-axis represents the cost for risk reduction for implementing risk reduction strategies, and the y-axis is the hazmat release risk in the transportation network. Based on the simultaneous consideration of both the risk and the cost, all the risk reduction strategies denoted by these dots can be classified into two categories. One is called non-dominated strategies. The other category is called dominated strategies. Compared to dominated strategies, the non-dominated strategies is preferred because given the same cost of risk reduction, the non-dominated strategies can result in the risk to a lower level. Similarly, given the same risk level compared to the dominated strategies, the non-dominated strategies can requires less cost. So the combination of all of these non-dominated strategies are collectively referred to parental frontier. So the optimal decision making is on this frontier. So the question is, which individual risk reduction strategy on this frontier is optimal? To answer this, we need to make certain assumptions. Assuming the risk reduction safety benefit can be quantified in a monetary value, and assuming the decision maker have equal preference between risk and cost, a commonly used approach is called net present value approach. In this approach, for each year, the decision maker calculates the net benefit of a risk reduction strategy, and this value is discounted to the present value. However, this NPV approach may be subject to uncertainty because different decision makers could have different definitions of benefit and cost, and different people may have their different assessment of the effectiveness of risk reduction strategies. Also, it is due to the difficulty in estimating the economic benefit of safety improvement. Also, in the NPV approach, different people may select different discount rate study period, and different rules could have different track and rolling stock conditions. Due to all this various uncertainty, instead of being a single deterministic value, the NPV may follow a random distribution. As a proof of concept, we are on slide 32. This slide shows a hypothetical NPV distribution using Monte Carlo simulation. We assume that the annual benefit and the annual cost follow a normal distribution, and they are independent of each other. We assume the annual discount rate is 5%, the study period is 40 years. It shows that when both the benefit and the cost are random, the NPV follows a random distribution. If we take the mean value of the cost and the mean value of benefit, we can get the mean value of estimated NPV. But in addition to the mean value, we are also concerned with the variance of this NPV distribution. Because when we have more than one risk reduction strategies, due to this uncertainty, different risk reduction strategies can have their different NPV distributions. So this offers the research opportunities to compare and evaluate different risk reduction strategies and their uncertainty. In certain cases, the comparison between these risk reduction strategies is less difficult. For instance, on slide 33, this shows two NPV distributions. Although both NPV distributions are subject to uncertainty, but in this case, NPV2 is always greater than NPV1. In another case, maybe two risk reduction strategies can result in the same mean value in NPV, but one risk reduction strategy can have a smaller variance, which means the decision maker can be more confident in estimating the NPV for a specific risk reduction strategy. So in this case, NPV2 may be preferred due to its smaller uncertainty. However, the more general case is a risk reduction strategy can result a larger mean value, and meanwhile, it has a larger variance. So the optimal decision making may be based upon the consideration of both the mean and the variance. So in my dissertation research, I want to address this economic analysis of risk reduction strategies by accounting for uncertainty. So in terms of risk modeling, I plan to analyze the effect of parameter uncertainty on the risk estimation. And the evaluation of risk reduction strategies will be performed in a stochastic framework. I will consider the means to reducing this uncertainty in the cost-benefit analysis, and also consider the covariance between the benefit and the cost estimation. Ultimately, the goal is to optimizing risk reduction strategies and their various constraints and uncertainty. This is for the future research. This is an example model to show how to manage the risk of transporting hazardous materials on railway networks. As I said before, different risk reduction strategies can affect some of the risk factors in the transportation network. And the optimal decision is the best combination of infrastructure condition, rolling stock condition, container design, and operations. In order to get this optimal set of decisions, the optimization model will be developed to minimize the cost and the risk, and subject to capacity and traffic flow constraints. This is an example model to show the application of optimization model to identify the optimal risk reduction strategies. In this particular model, the objective function is a total cost of maintenance cost, transportation cost, and the risk cost. subject to capacity constraints and the other constraints. I want to emphasize that this particular model is based upon certain assumptions. For instance, one assumption is the cost of transportation risk can be quantified in a monetary value, and the decision maker have equal preference between the risk and the cost. A more general framework to consider this is multi-attribute decision making. So in my dissertation research, I'm developing a multi-attribute utility model to consider the decision maker's risk attitudes, as well as the trade-offs among conflicting objectives. This is particularly useful when the risk and cost are measured in different units and our metrics. Eventually, the goal is to develop an optimization model in which I will consider the interactive effects of various risk reduction strategies and develop a model to identify the optimal side of risk reduction strategies by developing a stochastic optimization program. So I want to thank my advisor, Professor Barkan, my co-advisor, Pixat, my committee members, Dr. Yanfeng Ouyang and Professor Junhao Song, and Todd Trackle for guiding me through in this research. I want to also thank Nanyan Zhou, Antapon Corporation, and Boshi for their assistance with this research. The support for this research comes from Association of American Railroads, BSF Railway, Norfolk Southern, CSX, Union Pacific, NextTrans Transportation University, NextTrans Canadian National, Canadian Pacific Railway, and Monsanto. We are grateful for their financial support or data support. And last but not least, I appreciate your attention for people who are either in the audience or people participate on the phone. So if you have any questions, comments, I'm ready to answer. Are there any questions from the audience? Let's see.
There are a lot of different ideas in your proposed dissertation research. What is your priority right now?
Priority?
Yeah, which one are you going to start with based on the understanding and also based on what the industry needs at this point?
I think right now the priority in my research is to develop a formal framework to understand and evaluate different risk reduction strategies. Because due to safety and security concerns, there are a number of risk reduction strategies available. But the question is, what the best portfolio of investment for the risk reduction strategies, and how to quantify the risk, quantify the cost, and integrate the cost and the risk in the same framework. So I think the evaluation of risk reduction strategies is the priority of my work for now. Is the first question? Should I answer? Yes. Show me which one is the first question.
What? I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, that's better to see the question. Okay. Okay, there are several questions for the people on the phone. I appreciate these questions. So the first question is about highway rail grid crossing on the risk analysis. First of all, this is an excellent question, and in this particular presentation, I focus on talking about train derailment, the effects of train derailments on hazmat release risk. But as this person pointed out that grid crossing may be another important accident causes that can affect the hazmat release risk. Actually, my colleague Samantha Chadwick, her master thesis is to specifically addressing the effect of highway rail crossing accidents on hazmat release. So, but to briefly address this question, I want to first emphasize the different characteristics of different types of accidents. If we compare train derailment with highway rail crossing accidents, when a derailment occurred, maybe a larger number of cars will be derailed from this train. But in terms of highway rail crossing accidents, there's maybe only one or two cars may be derailed from the train. So the first difference is in the severity part. And second of all, in the highway rail crossing accidents, you need to address two scenarios. One is the train struck the highway vehicle, or the highway vehicle struck the train. So different collision scenarios may result in different risk estimate. And because this is highway rail crossing accidents on the risk analysis is still ongoing work for Samantha Chadwick. So if you have interest, you can directly contact her for more details. The second question is, how do releases from derailments compare to releases from non-derailments? Okay. This is also a very good question, because in terms of hazmat release incidents, there are two types. One is called train accident caused hazmat release. That's type 1. The other type is non-accident caused release, which is also referred to NAR. And this question is, what's the difference between this NAR hazmat release and accident caused release? I think there are several differences. The first difference is the number of frequency. In each year, for the NAR database, there are more than 600 non-accident hazmat releases, but for train derailment and other types of accidents, there are more train accidents in the railroads. A second difference is in terms of train derailment is the severity, because on average, train accident caused hazmat release may release a larger quantity of hazardous materials compared to the releases from the non-accident releases, such as valve failures. Dr. Sa, do you have any additional comments on this?
Yeah, I think in particular, the risk for accident cause releases are higher than NARs, right? Also, the NARs are more frequent than accident cause releases.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there's one question from Sparkin. How does the shape of distributive function affect this? the mean. Sure. So this question from Professor Barkin. The question is, how does the shape of the distributive function affect the decision about optimal strategies when the mean and the variance differ? Okay, this is. So first, I think I need to talk about what is the distributive function. So in the risk model, I've been talking about the important underlying assumptions that the decision maker is risk neutral. What is a risk neutral? Assuming we have two scenarios. One scenario is there are 100 accidents per year, and each accident involves only one person. Another scenario is there's only one single accident per year, but this accident may potentially affect 100 people. So in terms of total number of persons involved, those two scenarios are the same. But if a decision maker is risk averse, she is more sensitive to the severe consequences. So that is the difference between the risk neutrality and the risk aversion. And in order to consider the risk aversion in the risk analysis, a commonly used approach is to use a utility function or distributive function.
The answer to that question would depend if you're going to include variance in your utility function. If you're just going to use mean, you'll probably just shift the final metric or the preference of the decision makers. But it seems like there should be a way to include both mean and variance in the multi-attribute utility function. Would that be a possibility?
Yeah, first let me understand this question. I'm assuming Professor Barkin is asking me because I show the two NPV distributions. So I'm assuming his question is about when the two NPV distributions differ in the mean and the variance, how the distributive function affect the decision making. This is his question, I'm assuming. This is my understanding. Okay, so if that is the question, the answer is if the distributive function is convex or concave, that can change the optimal decision making. For instance, if two NPV curves are different in the mean and the variance, that's a trade-off between the low probability but high consequence versus high probability and low consequence. And if the decision maker is more sensitive to the high consequences, even though the probability is low, so she is more, so for this specific decision maker, the decision making is more sensitive to her perception of the risk. If she is more sensitive to the severe consequences, the decision making should be made to minimize the expected disutility. So that's the answer. So the optimal decisions should be based on minimizing the expected disutility function. Of course, the different shape of different disutility function can change their expected disutility function as well as change the optimal decisions. So, do you have any other comments on this?
But how do you address the variance?
The variance is just uncertainty.
Would that be included in the utility function?
Utility function is a function of the consequences, and the expected utility function is a combination of both the uncertainty and the consequences part. So. Okay. Move on to talk about other questions or. Another question is, in optimizing the transportation of 100 hazmat cars, what strategy is optimal in terms of number of trains used balanced with number of hazmat cars for train. Route speed, train outcomes.
So again, the question is, at one extreme, if you have 100 cars of hazmat unit transport, should we use one unit train that include 100 hazmat cars versus several shorter trains, not really shorter train, but several trains that probably have 20 hazmat cars, the first one, and another train that's carrying the rest, or some other train. We can distribute 100 cars to different trains.
Yeah, I think the answer depends on the metric to measure the risk. If we normalize the risk by train mile or by car mile, the answer can be different. Optimal strategies can be different. So I'm still thinking what specific point he was asking about this question. The question is, this person asked, your data seem to indicate a difference in POR based on number of cars in the train. And my question is, what does it mean by POR as probability of release? If the POR refers to let's wait a little bit to make this question more clear. Okay, so okay. Yes, the answer is yes. But if the track conditions are the same, if the derailment speed is the same, if the train length is the same, the release rate is not property release. Release rate is affected by number of tank cars in the train. The more tank cars in the train, the higher the release rate. No, I want to emphasize here because in my data, the hazmat release rate, as I said before, is normalized by train miles. So does not suggest if we have one car in each of 100 trains is the best. Because it also depends on the position of these hazmat cars in the train.
What would be the level of risk as compared to one car in each of 100 trains versus 100 cars, hazmat cars in one train? Do you have any sense of what would be the level of risk? I don't think we have addressed that using this model before.
No, this model is not for this purpose, but let me think. If you have 100 cars, all the 100 cars in the same train versus each single hazmat car in a train, and you have 100 train for the same amount of traffic. So which one is better? That's a question, right?
Right. So my understanding is that if, like, let's say, for example, one car in 100 trains, if we have the position of the car at the worst position, so the net risk for that probably higher than having one train with 100 cars. Would you agree?
If you have only one car in the train, and this car is in the position which is the most prone to derailment, yes, this is for this particular car, for this one train mile, the risk level is higher. But if you have 100 cars in this train, some cars in the positions have a lower release rate, have a lower release probability compared to other positions. So.
Right, but if you multiply the first case by 100, is it higher or lower than the second case? That's the question.
I would say it's probably, if you have one car in the train, you can multiply by about 100. If we're assuming all the cars are in that particular positions, which are the most dangerous, that is the highest estimation, the more conservative estimation of the risk.
What if the cars were in train in random order? What's that?
In the randomly order, because in this, that's a good question, because in this research, we assume that all the cars are in the positions most prone to derailment. But there are also possibilities they are uniformly distributed or randomly distributed. In that case, the risk level is lower than the risk estimate we presented in this particular presentation.
So I guess the answer to that last question is no then. Or maybe, I don't know.
And then look at this. Yeah. Yeah. So again, it depends on if I have only one car in each train, how this car is placed. Is it possible every time the hazmat car is always in the worst case scenario? That's a question. But on the extreme case, yes, if every time your car is in the worst case scenario, overall, this is the worst case. But I think the answer is it depends on the placement of tank car and as well as other factors. Are there any questions for the people on the phone?
Okay. Xiang.
Please, yeah.
So since you have a lot of inputs, you have like the type of signal, you have
Mm-hmm.
classic tracking, you have the volume. From my understanding, this analysis is largely done for a dedicated freight line. Have you looked at ways to quantify like the share of traffic for a shared port?
Not yet for this research,
Okay.
because here I focus on freight traffic, but it's an important question because on a shared corridor, the safety is I think the peak have any comments on this since we have a shared corridor.
It depends on what risk you want to quantify, I guess. Here we start focusing on the risk of having a release. When we have a shared corridor, we're talking about safety of passenger train.
I'm talking about that, and I'm also talking about looking at the share, like for a shared corridor, the volume traffic rate, volume traffic with passenger, and if that would have an additional effect on the probability of release. Assuming that you don't keep your traffic template separately.
Using this model, I know that the volume that we're looking at is just the train.
Yeah.
It's possible that we're focusing on derailment. It's possible that you could also look at collision and derailment falling another track. That's probably another level of risk analysis, I guess.
In general, probability of increase that much, but the consequences might because you have people in the corridor.
All right, any other questions from the audience or people on the phone?
You're talking about a higher speed passenger train, and you're talking about a higher FI track. In that case, you're going to have a higher track quality and lower derailment per train. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's too small. Thank you for your question.
So there'd be more of an effect on cause